Hi, I'm Tansy Katsia, former Miss South Africa 2007, and you're watching Joburg Today.
Hello everyone and welcome to another exciting edition of Joburg Today. I'm your host, Leroy Viaggi. Arabella is an 11-year-old South African girl going through some changes in her life, and in her own back garden discovers the magic that changes her life forever. It is a local South African fiction story that will resonate with the South African readers directly, especially the young. Charming is the word used to describe the adventures of Arabella's encounters along the journey. Author and world-renowned journalist Hamilton Wade discusses his latest book, Arabella, with us.
When I set out to write the book, I deliberately wanted to make it a South African book that brings in all sorts of cultures, Western culture, African culture, Indian culture, which we experience in this country of ours. And I also think you access the universal through the local. So, in other words, Arabella's father dying of cancer, her going into sadness, her finding magic, could just as easily be in a suburb of London or, frankly, Bangalore or in India or somewhere like that. But what people have loved and what children have loved about this book is the fact that it is so South African, and that, for example, Queen Ngwedi, which means moon in Sotho, she looks, in my imagination, when the moon is horned, she looks like a giant Nguni cow with the lovely black and white hide in the sky, in the starlit sky. So that to me was a way of, the moon is always a universal, magical and mythical and symbolic image all around the world. But that made it my own unique African magic moon, as thinking of Queen Ngwedi as a giant Nguni cow. To some degree, Arabella is based on my daughter at that sort of age. I never really specify the age. It's about between 10 and 11. And she and her friendships at school, and sometimes the little friendship groups that go wrong, as they sometimes do. And then she has these challenges as a little girl. But she also has this magical adventure because her father dies of cancer, which didn't happen to us, but I felt that it was good to bring in some of the reality of the world into a children's story rather than it being completely fantasy. And that sadness opens her up to the reality of magic in the world. So it was quite interesting balancing the real little girl Arabella, who is a fictional character, she's not my daughter, and also then taking her on this magical journey with special rules of magic that she has to learn. Well, it's already had great appeal. I mean, it appeals to children and it's written for children, but any good children's book also has a tongue-in-cheek hint to the adults. So, for example, if you might remember your high school English poetry, Ozymandias, written by Percy Bysshe Shelley, was about a fallen Egyptian pharaoh who was once the most powerful man in the world. So King Ozymandias, who's king of the Hadidars in Johannesburg, is a kind of tongue-in-cheek look at this powerful bird that's so powerful compared to Arabella, who can turn into a butterfly, and her friends, the chameleon, Mr. Sweetsteps, which comes from Trapsukis in Afrikaans. Then Jongu, who's the Songololo, who she meets in the garden, and she meets the Parktown prawn, of course, who's a very misunderstood fellow. He's quite brave and quite loyal and is very hurt by the way humans are scared of him. I gave a talk at Parkview Senior Primary a couple of years ago, and I was selling the book at the local market, the Parkview Christmas market, a couple of years ago. And this 10 or 11-year-old girl ran up and gave me a big hug. And she said, "Hamilton, because of you and because of Arabella, I've started reading again." So I don't think you can ask for much of a greater reward than that. The present one that you're seeing on the screen behind me is now a collector's edition. There's only 200 of them left. I'm selling them through my website, which at hamiltonwende.com. You can get my email address and you can send me an email and I'll make sure you get a book. It's going at 100 Rand, special for this collector's edition. And yeah, the next one's coming out in May. So we're reissuing Arabella, the Moon and the Magic Mongongo Nut. And we're now having Arabella, the Secret King, and the Amulet from Timbuktu. And that's all about Knysna and the secret elephants in the forests and what happens in the lagoons with the oysters and the seahorses. So that's what kids can look forward to.
Hi, this is Balinkosi, and you're watching Joburg Today.
Well, that's it for today's show, but if you want to know more about what's happening in and around Johannesburg, you need to check out our playlist. From me and the guys behind the scenes, till next time.